and stuff like that. And about Yssah, I'm going to read you right from her YouTube page. It says, remembering our original expression that who we are is our biggest mission, we encoded that information in many ways. Unveiling that information, remembering and embodying it is our responsibility, our commitment to be the divine source of sovereign nature. There are many multiple manners to achieve this. One of them is spiritual tech, which is one of the most ancient civilizations the world conveys through initiation into the generations to come to keep primordial seed of cosmic wisdom alive within. Through quantum and plasma technology, she has designed methods to access this information and ignite it within. This information comes from the Ark of Isis, related to the primordial gen and how to unfold its full potential as the multidimensional beings we are, as the cosmic human race we are. To know more about the methods that involves geometry, numerology, astrology, biology, and much more, stay tuned to her channel, which is it's her name, which is Yssah Azarte Libyan. Did I pronounce that right, Yssah?
Yes, you can call me Isha, Yssah, Aisha. I know it's a name that can be pronounced in many ways, because actually I didn't know when I chose this name, yet it has very ancient roots. Like the word Ish is related to the primordial feminine. So the first time that I went to Egypt, everyone was calling me, "Oh, Aisha, are you Muslim? Are you from here? Are you Arabic?" And I was like, sort of. Let's say like I'm from everywhere, but I do have Lebanese roots, as you know.
You're Lebanese. That's interesting. Yeah. Or so are you like mixed cultures? Like are you you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, my grandfather was Lebanese, and my on the side of my mother's father was Lebanese, and from my father's side, Mexican. So yes. And you know that if nowadays we run a DNA test, it's most likely that we will have a little bit of everything. So, the same
That's
in relation
interesting.
to the galactic DNA. We also have a lot of races. So intergalactic
Yeah.
race.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say that if you, I've tried to, I'm part Lebanese as well, and I've tried to trace like my ancestry back. I didn't do the 23andMe, just like through my family and stuff. And I know that the Lebanese, they go back to the ancient Phoenicians, and before that it starts with a C. I'm starting to think of I'm trying. Oh, I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue, but yeah. But anyway, it goes
Like
back really ancient.
like Canaan in relation to
The
Canaan.
Canaanites, yeah, the Canaanites, yes,
Yes.
exactly,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of hidden knowledge there, precisely because when it opens, as it will open up, like now that all of that is going on around the Middle East and so forth, it has many layers of the why. That's how I perceive it, the why and the what for. What is the purpose for that to happen from a unified consciousness perspective? And one of the reasons are the stargates, all of the things that will be moving there, and all the records that are coming, that are popping up, because that area is so powerful that's why it's so, there are a lot of forces trying to fight over it.
I agree. It seems like it. And do you think that's why it's been going on for so long because of that? Does it go back to the ETs, you think?
Yes, like as I was saying, it goes many layers, and if we see our origin is galactic. We're a cosmic race, So when it began, it was mostly when humans were not even, like part of the decision making. So, and even though there are very specific places in the air that have anomalies based on the electric current that is going underground, and that's why they generated those stargates there, because it was easier to actually extract the 0 point energy through the vacuum and go beyond the gravitational field, because there were already those anomalies there, the same as in the pyramids. All the places that they decided to put the pyramids in are based on areas with anomalies that is easier to extract zero point energy from the vacuum, and then go beyond the gravitational field, and bring spacecrafts and so forth. And all that area, for instance, speaking about Lebanon, if we read into the etymology of Baalbek, Baalbek is the port of Baal. And Baal, we know that is known as a deity, and it was a member of the galactic community, and a lot of ships would actually have their port there, you know. And when we read about Jeshua going to the Mount of the Siders and so forth, is because there are huge portals, and through those connections with the ETs, with the galactic communities, that they would receive so many upgrades besides the initiation path that they had already gone through in Egypt, in India, in the Himalayan, it's so like in connection to what you were asking, for me, it all comes to the power of energy, like who can handle more energy, who can own more energy. And involving the stargates, it represents like a monopoly, or or ruling over a big extent of the planet Earth, and receiving the all that connection and interrelation, and with the ET communities, and having, well, that's one thing, like bringing and opening the channel through those stargates to the ET races. But we know that the ET races are already here, so what else can there be to it? And another thing is that there are a lot of important artifacts there, and also other underground cities that have all that area, with tunnels underground, and leading to even more important portals like other ones in Jordan. But these are not very renowned because they have a very specific protocol within the races. This is kind of untouchable area. But when it comes to Sinai, when it comes to Lebanon, when it comes to Gaza, it's like, all those artifacts and platforms that were created at that time, and that actually is easier in those areas. We can collect plasma from all the earth, because plasma is there, is one of the layers. The thing is that due to these anomalies, that plasma is maximized. Is So the more plasma, the more power, because plasma it can be used for many things, and actually a lot of the stargates that were placed in those areas have to do with the mastery of time, artifacts that are related to very specific uses of and travel, like time travel. And I'm just mentioning like a thin layer to it. There are more complex forms of manipulating time, what we perceive as time, and actually that would lead to even have a more powerful influence on the Earth's Merkaba structure.
That's amazing. And I just wanted to say, like, you're so advanced. Like, and I've told you this before, like you and Sean, for the audience that doesn't know, I got to meet Yssah and Sean Bond at the conference. They had a table right next to mine, and then they were selling like really interesting stuff. And then I got to hang out with them and stuff at the conference as well. And then I actually did a show with both of them when they came on, and they're really advanced. And I feel like I know a lot, and you guys are like levels above me. So like, what I wanted to ask you was like, how did this all start for you? Like, when did you start like looking into like alternative sources and alternative ancient history, and like all the ET stuff? And like, was there like were you always like this, or did you have an awakening point, or like what happened?
Well, ever since I was a little girl, I would have visitations from these luminescent beings that would come around my bed, and a lot of those memories are like remained throughout all of my life, like intact. And also not only with ETs, also with other kind of entities, and they would be like just observing, you know. And after I can also recall uh, writing every like once a week at least a letter to my parents saying like a farewell. Thank you for everything that you gave to me. It was very nice and fun to be your daughter, until we meet again. And I in how all these replaced memories or screen memories function. So at that moment, I would just the next moment I would be back again in my grandparents' house, and it stopped there. Like I started to have like really overwhelming experiences as a human. So then I also remember a being, an angelic being came to me, but it was more of it had like a Hindi um, nature. It was a being from Hindi, but with this angelic frequency. And he just prepared me to go fully through the matter, like go a human in my mind 100%, and then that I will be my connection would be restored from a state of awareness later. So, but it really didn't stop there. I continued to have other kind of experiences, yet I was not aware of that. That's the thing. And it would involve like other kind of beings, like because normally when you have very intimate connections with like positive connections with ETs visitations, what can happen is that you start to your frequency obviously shifts. It's restored, like even when I was born, I had a lily color. My eyes were color lily, like violet, and then they shifted, so all these kind of things that even though you already know that you're going to do something, and the more than you recall and put all the pieces together, you said, oh, I did this and I used to do that, and I perceived reality like this. And I like all like adults always around me would tell me like, you're not a kid, like you're not a kid. Where are you hiding the encyclopedia? Where are you hiding this? Where are you hiding that? But then again, in all that teenage area, like I went full into the matrix, to say it somehow, the simulation matrix. And then when I gave birth, but I would still have contacts, not very positive ones, because when they perceived, specific beings perceived what I had opened within me, then I needed to leave the other side of the story in order to unify my consciousness, like meet goodness and meet not that very not that generous part of not only humankind but also of other beings. And then when I gave birth to my daughter, Sufi, I it was like full restoration. And then I started of all my memories, and then I started remembering all those things about. I mean, I just went to one trip to connect with the Inca ancient knowledge, and all that shamanic part of me also popped out. And then sacred geometry, ancient civilizations such as Egypt, the Vedic civilization, Mayan, Hebrew, all of this, started just to be a remembrance of something that I did yesterday, something that I knew. And then again, species started to contact me again, progressively different kind of beings, a lot of underground beings when I was in Egypt, because when it comes to, for instance, ETs, um, they come in very specific stages of my life when I am translating very specific codes or I have very specific missions.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Like, but when you had the not so benevolent, would you was that with what we would call gray aliens, or what was it, reptilians, or what was it? Do you remember?
Yes, there were a little bit of both, and they do, when it comes to the grays, they do handle very good. They master a lot of technology in relation to uh, creating bubbles of reality. So it's like you are projecting your consciousness to this field, and you are in another field, like, let's say 10% or 20%, whatever is needed just to be breathing, and talking and not to be too obvious, you are here. The rest of your consciousness, or most of it, it's being extracted or being tested or being, and all from the holofractographic field. But and it can also densify into the matter. It's like you, when you do bilocation, some sort of, like, you're doing bilocation. So the thing is that you are doing it from a state of awareness. Here it's not, this part is aware, but this part is not aware. So they only put you in, because we hear stories that there is some people that go, and then while dreaming, while sleeping, and then after they wake up, like, they spend a life elsewhere, and in earth only past like 2 minutes. you know that's one way. The one that the other way, or another way that I've discovered through my own experience, is that process continued through all my teenagehood. And while I was being present here, I was, most of my consciousness was in another um, reality, and interacting with other beings that were trying to do very specific things due to uh, my mission, and to the other visitations that I had previously as a kid. So
Wow. And what do you think that what do you think that was like that like did they knew you had a certain mission and that they were trying to stop that, I guess?
yes, yes. Even, for instance, um, when, well, yes, I mean, there are topics that I cannot talk about yet. But for instance, what I can do tell is that, um, in my case, it began when I bled. When I had my period, my first period, because that is a very powerful, we were talking about blood, like so it's like raising an antenna, and even smell, and like other things that, based on the genetic encoding, activates very specific attention. And then that's based on that's what makes or will make them act or follow in a very specific part, to try to stop, to try, or if we look at from a unified consciousness perception, due to that, is that we can actually gain all our power. Because if, for instance, I leave that, is that I needed to master all of that in order to, like, check all those areas which, as a soul, I haven't covered yet. and it has helped me a lot to acknowledge the power that resides within me and that resides within each one of us, you know, because that's how this matrix was configured. It was configured to the more emotions that you generate, you get to touch heaven or hell, because that's how they keep the polarization process like in a continuous way without reaching the center, because whether we have or a very good experience or a very bad experience, but as soon as we don't move forward into the center, then we're not capable to actually own all those experience and actually even shift them, because when we talk about time, it's so fragile that the moment that we are aware of that, we are capable to even, um, a lot of people call it shifting timelines. I have also and many or several times called it that way. Uh, the more that I tune into time, because that's a lot of what I have been doing now that I am here in Mexico, connecting with the Mayan. We know that the Mayans were masters in time, in what we know as time. So the more that I'm remembering and tuning into that field within the space memory network, is that I see like what are part of your memories, what you remember, for instance, that Rob has done or was in the past. If you reach a very specific point within the wave that the curvature of space-time is moving, you're capable to dissolve that and generate like activate a whole new spatio-temporal constant. And it's like you were never that Rob. It's You're capable to create a matrix, and it's so powerful, and that's one of the things that they are trying to reach in the Middle East, because imagine what power does that represent. If the thing is that if you don't come from a unified consciousness, you're playing with fire and more.
Wow, that's interesting. So I'll get to the point of what we were going to talk about tonight. Tonight we were going to talk about ancient tech for enlightenment of the soul and our ET inheritance. Now, you have a lot of experience with this. You've been to the ancient sites, like right? You've been to Egypt, and yeah. So I didn't know if you wanted to start off talking about that, and if that ties into what we're going to be talking about, and yeah, I'll kind of let you go from there. But
Okay, sure. Thanks, Rob. By the way, I didn't thank you for having me in your show. Thank you.
No, yeah, yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm so glad you come on. Yeah, this is
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you.
Like I
Yes,
said, you guys are
it's
levels above though. I try to keep up with you, but sometimes you get my head spin. I'm like, wow, like, but it's all it's good though. It's good. It's like good. It challenges me to think.
yeah, well, actually, that's also what a lot of people tell me, that they might not understand what I am saying. But I always say that the frequency of our voice, it's capable to activate and mirror into the information that is in your field. So we are all the time comprehending, and generating that resonance and activations. Like right now, we are generating a lot of activations, and in each one's encoding. So yeah, it's exciting. And yeah, so about Egypt. Well, I I was in Egypt for about 4 years.
Wow.
First 2 years coming and going, and then 2 years in a row. And for me, it has been one of the most fascinating adventures that I have had so far, and that I continue to have every time that I go there. Um, you know that all of us, we have more connection with the specific places depending on our memories, our soul memories, and our mission. So in my case with Egypt, is so clear and so strong. as soon as I touched the ground there, like all of this magic, miracles, alchemy, that was everywhere. I didn't need to go to the pyramids to experience the precision of what enlightenment is and see how the matrix functions. Now, when you go to all these ancient sites, you get to see, well, in my experience, I get to see the holographic aspect of it, and also the holofractographic. What is the difference? The holofractographic would involve all the geometries, you know, all the geometries, all the patterns, the colors, the frequencies, how it is all communing to one another. For instance, why do you think all those blocks in the, like these monoliths that put together a structure of a temple, why are all of them in different shapes? And perhaps you can say, well, they didn't have a mold back at that time. Yeah, that's a possibility. But also, why would some of the blocks would also be covering the angle? Like you have a full block, even in an angle, not block, the angle, and then another block. No, just continuously, as if I was spreading uh, cream cheese, in the blocks. That's the constitution of some blocks, but not all of them. And then you get to see, right, because each one of them is emitting a very specific frequency. They're generating music. So every person that enters into that temple is not generating music or melodies through their voice hitting into the blocks. And then the blocks are made of very specific material like granite, but not only granite. It's granite fusioned with crystals, with metals, with it's that's why they say that they were melting them, and then creating in very specific forms. And each one of those, so when you talk, your voice is hitting the rocks, and then the rocks are giving you a feedback. But it's not only the feedback of your voice, it's the feedback with the information of every block, of every glyph. You're accessing to that information. The more your third eye, your senses are open, the more that you will receive visions, the more that you will start to feel, like serotonin flowing throughout all of your nervous system, the more that you will have like this feeling that you're floating, or that you will heal, because that also happens, depending on the level, on the structure. For instance, if you go to the pyramid, if you go to a sarcophagus, well, what they call sarcophags, it's very funny because every time you go there, it's like you give the explanation of the guide who is there, and he says, and here is the sarcophag, and the mummy is in the Cairo Museum. And you say, really? No, there is no mummy in any museum that was found in the sarcophag or in the box. They were like, now what we know nowadays as med beds. It would be a kind of an equivalent of those boxes, yet those boxes also would have the purpose of astral projection, of a lot of configurations of the grid, because they would do all the configurations of what happens, from of this reality through the holofractographic field, downloading codes, geometries, and through their plasma body, having the strength, the power to actually manifest those configurations. It's like, even using the blocks as keyboards, depending on the blocks and on the glyphs, They were also used as keywords.
Wow. Oh, and I've heard like on a 3D level, I heard that like the mainstream Egyptologists will try to tell you that the kings were buried in the pyramid, but I heard that the kings were buried like further away in the Valley of the Kings actually, and and the pyramid had a different purpose. Is that true?
Yes, definitely, definitely. Very, as I have told you, they have not found not one mummy in one of the sarcophags that were found in, at least in the main pyramids. There were other pyramids, smaller pyramids with smaller sarcophags that were actually feeding from that energy, and in those they did found mummies. But the main ones, the ones that we know as the Grand Pyramid, Hafra or Kefren, and Vinkerinos or Moncaura, they didn't found a single mummy. They were even they there you cannot see any glyph, there is no inscription. And for instance, when you see when you go to see the Grand Pyramid, well, they related to the king, one of the kings or pharaohs, Hofu, and or Cheops. It's the name in Arabic, Hofu, or it's Cheops. And when you go to the museum, to the Grand Museum, well, not the new one, the previous one, when you go to the place where they have the things for this king, the only thing that you will find is a small statue, like this big. And when I saw it, I said, like, wow, this is really ironic, having the biggest pyramid in Egypt found so far, and him having a small statue made for him. It's not coherent. And actually, I have friends that have talked to very specific people and said that the tomb of that king, of that pharaoh, is not even in the Valley of the Kings or the Valley of the Queens. It is near to Abydos, and for me it makes complete sense. And even the Valley of the Kings and the Queens is there for a very specific reason. There are a lot of stargates there. That's the main reason why they used to mummify the kings and the queens, and according to the bloodline, because it was a sort of cryogenesis process that they were trying to attempt for where the moment came. They would activate and use that capsule to go in through to go through the Stargate that are in that mountain, Red Mountain. I used to live in front of that mountain when I was in Luxor, and I had visitations every night, every night.
Wow. That's amazing. You live that close to Luxor?
Yes. While I was in Giza, I was living in front of the Sphinx at some stage, and in another period in front of the Grand Pyramid, just in front.
That's insane. That's amazing. Holy
Yeah.
shit! Like that's amazing. I mean, and what do you? I mean, I'm guessing you've read the Emerald Tablets before. Well, what's interesting about the Emerald Tablets is like they found the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, but then the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. They say that that Dr. Doriel found them, but whatever the case, I still find them to be like a great amount of esoteric wisdom. Whether they were, but I mean, but what it says in there is it says Thoth says that he buried his spaceship underneath the Sphinx. That's what he said. That's what it says. And you were talking about in that show with Rion that there might be underground cities in Egypt, and we hear about the Hall of Amenti too, right? That they say that there's this grand library of maybe like Akashic information underneath Egypt called the Halls of Amenti. I mean, what do you think about all this? And I mean,
well, for me, those are two very interesting questions. Thank you. the first time that I went to the plateau, I didn't go whether to the Sphinx or to the pyramids. I went to a part that it's to an area in the desert that is in the back part of a cemetery, a Muslim cemetery that they built there. So if you ask yourself, why would they build a cemetery there? Of course, they were trying to put their print, their imprint, as they put also mosques there. But then you say, yes and no, like energetically, you think that in those places they used to bury people. So then you try to generate that empathy and bury your people there. Yeah, that's also an option. Another option is that they knew that they would never remove those tombs, those tombs, So what is underground there? So when I went into that part, which is not allowed to go, like only if you are meant to go there, everything just happens easily. And I could see that that is one of the most important areas in the whole plateau in relation to spacecrafts, even in relation to spacecrafts. Even I have shared with Nassim Haramein, a good friend of that, a remarkable scientist as well, that there are very important like there are spacecrafts there, and um, there is not only one, there are several, and they're trying to cover up all that area, of course. And like for instance, well, before going there, you were asking about the Hall of Amenti, or Amentu, as how I call it. So for me, every time that I've been there, it is a physical place, and of course, it is also a non-physical place. You can access there energetically, and the main purpose of the Hall of Amenti is to show how this cube is created and how to unravel this cube, the simulation cube. Because in order to get there and access to all that information, you need to master nine consciousnesses, which are normally related to nine beings. And each one of the nine beings is testing one of those specific initiation process. And that's for many reasons. One of them, which would be the most simple, is that if you are not resonating the very specific frequency that place hosts, you can die, because the frequency is so high, it's so coherent, that if you are not resonating in that frequency, let's say that your body collapses, so I'm talking about the core of the Hall of Amenti, like perhaps if they find the physical structure, there will be a lot of seals, like energetic seals. But when it comes to the core to it, then it is showing to you how it's where the button is to stop the reset. I'll tell you this. It's where the button is to stop the reset of this simulation matrix. And it's also connected to Xibalba, which is let's say, the Mexican expression of the Amenti, because they are interconnected through wormholes, and then they lead to a point in the center of the Earth that is a black hole, and then that black hole leads to the black hole in the center of the galaxy. So outside the dome.
That's fascinating. This is so fascinating. So I got to ask you. So are you when it comes to? I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this, but I mean, like, So are you a dome believer? Are you a flat believer? Are you a hologram believer? And does it really even matter? Because what? Okay, so they say NASA lies to us, right? Because And that's why a lot of the flat earthers and a lot of the flat earthers have their reasons why they think it's a flat earth. But like what you just explained to me makes me think that it's a holographic reality that that can be whatever we perceive it as. Maybe I don't know.
Well, thank you again for asking this, because I do believe that depending on the level of perception that you are approaching to this topic is what you will see. For instance, if you look at from a second form of dimensional perception, then you will see it as a flat Earth. Why? Because the second dimension is flat, you know. So I cannot blame the people who feel that the earth is flat, because from one of the layers, that is what it is projecting, but it's not the whole. So if you see it from a third dimensional form of perception or third density, you will then see that it is a hologram where X and Y are creating time and space, and then generating a third constant that is precisely space-time, which is everything. It what generates the matter. The curvature of space-time is what gravity interacts with in order to give the shape to the mass. So, and if you go, for instance, to, let's say, a fourth dimensional form of perception, then you will perceive this reality as a hologram. I'm sorry, like this. You were mentioning the hologram, the dome, right? So the
Yeah,
dome, for me, the dome is a projection that is being sent from Saturn. Like there is a huge, massive artifact in Saturn that is generating a plasmic hologram that is creating all this dome around the Earth. But it's not a dome like a vessel, like a half vessel. No, it is a dome that is more like the Oort cloud. You know, that Oort cloud that it is beyond the solar system, that is actually like surrounding all the solar system, and that actually that's what from what I can perceive, that these um, plain earth theorists are tuning into, and also even the dome ones, that all the solar system is, you know, it does not exist. It was placed, you know, those are projections, because there is an Oort cloud that it is projecting everything, but then again, it is spherical, and how it is condensing everything is through a cube, but not like a literal cube. You know, like if you go into your spaceship, then you will meet a big cube. No, it is projecting a hologram. Why? Because, for instance, if you want to, like the okay, I won't say the name, but if you want to put an injection on someone to cure, or to, you know, to speak the same language of disease, you will put a little bit of the disease in the injection, right? So it's sort of, if you want to use a virus, to use a very specific simulation, to run a specific simulation program, and for it to anchored and be sustained in a reality, it needs to have parts of the cosmic nature. Otherwise, you know, it wouldn't permeate into a reality. It could not exist. It would end up collapsing very fast. And actually, that's why it's also happening, because the force of nature cannot sustain a lie for so long, you know. So that's why also the timeline, it was shaped and created through this looping system, is collapsing now, because it cannot be sustained, because it's not the cosmic nature to all. But that's why they also create resets, so
yeah,
that it raise the memory, and then, you know, until so. But yeah, so for me it's the three, depending on the level of perception that you're approaching to it.
That's fascinating. And one thing that you mentioned, what was interesting, is you said in the halls of Amenti, you said they have a button that like you can reset the entire simulation. Like that's fascinating. But like, so let me ask you: are there things that exist outside of this simulation? Like for example, like I wanted to talk about inner Earth, and so I know you believe that there's beings or there's a lot going on inner Earth, but do you believe the people that say that there's lands outside of Antarctica, that
Hmm.
maybe that there might be stuff outside of the simulation there, or maybe more land masses that are a part of our simulation that we're not aware of?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I do perceive that there is a shift of consciousness which actually access you or grants you the access to go beyond the hologram. It not forcefully means that it's literal, like you're going in your boat in Antarctica and then you reach beyond the wall, and then there is this huge other reality, you
Yeah,
know, because then I do believe that it can generate an opposite effect of distraction. We don't need to go and look the things outside. We need to reach them within. And that's the thing. For instance, if I say, okay, there is a barrier in between matrices. Okay, so how can I detach from the anchors from this matrix in order to come and go? Okay, well, the answer is are not outside. Perhaps I can remember of things outside, but how can I reach it from within? And then it's all about, then again, shifting a form of perception, shifting a form of perception. I can tell you that as soon as your frequency rises, you are going into a fifth density if you stay in a very specific level of coherence and sustain it, because then you go back. Is for instance, when you have done like or attended to this super expansive event and you say, wow, I don't need anything else, I feel super complete, i I am everything and I am nothing, I see that um, you become the source to all. In that moment, you're at a five density. The thing is that to sustain it, there are things that keep tracking in order to restore you. Like, okay, the lamp is going outside of the field, somebody come and pick it and take it, It's the same. There are many ways, So
yeah,
it's so yeah, for me that's the thing, we reach definitely a barrier that makes us shift consciousness. But for instance, depending the level of barrier, for instance, if I reach that barrier, you might feel the difference in the frequency within me. Perhaps you will even perceive a halo within me, but I'm still here, depending, if then I activate a ninth level of consciousness and let's say through my rainbow body, then I will disappear. But it depends, you know?
yeah. I was going to say we have about 20 minutes left. But I was going to say, did you want to talk about what we were going to talk about tonight, which was the ancient tech for the enlightenment of the soul and our ET inheritance? So I didn't mean to go off on other tangents and stuff like that, but I'd like to pick your brain because you're very interesting to talk to. So so yeah.
Thank you.
But
Thank you. Sure, sure. I appreciate it. Thank you, Rob. Um, yeah, sure. So ancient tech, for instance, everything that we see as the pyramids, as we were talking about, because it's actually very connected. For instance, when we see these pyramids, uh, they are not just things uh, to acknowledge for its beauty. Those are things to use, you know, and to use it not just to find spacecrafts or spaceships. No, it's also to rise our frequency. For instance, if you go inside a pyramid and you have a pain in your leg, you will go out without the pain. So then you say, okay, now what is this reality actually telling me or showing to me? What's the feedback? And then you said, okay, it's generating like a lot of humidity, because that's what you will experience if you go, for instance, inside the king's chamber in the Grand Pyramid. Okay, I feel a lot of humidity. I feel also like a coolness, which is very interesting. And I feel a lot of echo and expansion. Okay, so what do I need to do in within to recreate that sensation? So that's when you start to reproduce the technology outside, inside. And that led me a lot to acknowledge how important the plasma body is, because the plasma body can get you really hot, like you're a star, you're beaming, you're on fire, like fire coming out of your eyes, like, these movies, like you're really emitting, like your aura expands so much that you become really hot. And other side to it is that it also makes your body feel very cool, you know? And that's when you go to a different form of plasma. And this is a plasma, a level of plasma that can actually make you levitate. If
Wow,
you
that's
want
amazing. Sorry, that's I got to hear about this. So I just had to. This is fascinating. Sorry, go ahead. This is
to,
amazing.
thank you. Well, all the psionic skills are achieved through the plasma body. Why? Because the plasma body generates longitudinal waves, like within our brain. And for instance, people that when you're doing telekinesis or telepathy, you're emitting longitudinal waves coming from your brain, even though they are, for instance, at a gamma wave, or at an epsilon or lambda, which are the different scales of brain waves. They come in through different intensities through a longitudinal wave, which is what enables to reach through the quantum tunneling. And the quantum tunneling is go beyond the distance, go beyond the barriers of the matter, or the mass, to say it somehow. So when you activate your plasma body, there is people who does it naturally. They don't even know what plasma is, and they do telepathy and they do telekinesis. I have done telekinesis and telepathy without even first knowing that there was, like all these plasma implications to it. However, when you know the origin, then it makes more sense, and then you can feel more passionate about it. For instance, why would plasma be related to the levitation? Because you can you can access to plasma through zero, which is the 0 point energy. It is coherence. And if you go through, for instance, quantum physics experiments or quantum mechanics, like the Bose-Einstein, is that they put so much cold pressure, like Kelvin, and then it's like the lowest amount of energy, and then the object rises. Why? Because the surrounding, it's like suspending. So then it's so dense energy, that then the object, it's possible for the object, to be suspended and levitating, what we see. Because what you are doing, which is amazing, I got very, very passionate about this. Imagine that we all have this sphere, like the ones that we see in the ancient depictions of these beings, like with this big halo, like the one that I have behind. Okay, so the more that you're concentrating your energy in your field, in your body, the more that you can compress it, generate that sphere, and then also manipulate the environment outside of your electromagnetic field to help compress. That is what helps compressing your bubble. So, bottom line, when you master plasma, you're mastering ether, what is known as ether. And for instance, if you want to levitate, you can use the ether to levitate you. And also you can use the plasma within you to to make your body lighter, and due to the level of coherence that you're generating. And by level of coherence, I'm talking at every scale. I'm talking about a level of coherence when you talk, think, and feel the same way. I'm talking about a level of coherence that you bring in all your energetic fields and compress them through very specific exercises, and then, generate that interaction with the space, that it lifts you up. And also, if you're attracting things to you through telekinesis, you are bridging your thought, the information and the energy that your thought is, all the way to that object. And all that space in between that object and you is being influenced by your strong force. So it's like you're manipulating that space in between the object and yourself, and you are making that space bring that object to you. And there are many ways of telekinesis. You can also apply the abracadabra. I was talking about this in my plasma online course, and a student pointed out, which I'm very grateful, because I was sharing about an experience that I had with telekinesis, that the times that I have experienced it is different. It's not slow motion. It's just like this. So it is through quantum tunneling, a faster quantum tunneling. So yeah, there are many ways of telekinesis as well, like manifesting all of a sudden without seeing something, like let's say we can say even time ripples, like bringing something quite fast into you. Those are keys that they have found in a lot of artifacts. Wow. Underground. That's why they can do that. We have it because we can remember, it's the delicate and gross part of what tangible things are and essential things are,
So how much of our reality do you think is malleable? How much of our reality do you think we can bend, or how much do you think of an effect we can have on this reality I guess it depends on your consciousness, right? Or your,
Yes. Like the quantum leaps that we have experienced so far, like when we unite, it's impressive the amount of force that we're capable to generate. Now on like quantum physics, from a quantum physics approach, I would tell you we are capable to manipulate the 99.9999999% of everything, and the rest of it we are capable through the 99.99999% that we manipulate. So yeah, it's however, it does require from a lot of commitment and compromise to master this, because we were talking about coherence, and what this matrix is mostly trying to do is to distract, like making it very obvious, like ads and problems and the time and money and so forth. And also through waves, through technology, like all the amount of interferential waves that exponentially are now brought into our field. Yeah.
What kind of cat is that? Is that just a regular?
Yeah, we got it. We found it in our neighbor's house. He was from the street.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, his name is Ninja. He's like a
ninja.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Does he have psychic abilities like you and Sean?
Yes, he's very intelligent. Actually, if we are talking about manipulating, sometimes he tries to manipulate us all. Like he's the scenes, you're moving all the threads.
Yeah. Well, I've talked about this before. I've talked about this on many shows. Like, it seems like cats have like this like weird kind of vision where they can see the paranormal. Like if you have a ghost in your house and your cat will be like looking at it, and dogs can do this too, where they'll be sitting here at your computer and your cat will be over here and it's looking at something. And you're like, what's it looking at? But
Yes.
then you realize that like something's there because you might get a chill up your body or something. And then you would probably know this because you're real tuned into like the paranormal and stuff. So like, but for most people, they can't, it's like their animals are like a sign that like something paranormal's around. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. For me, animals are super evolved, like us, they were restrained from all their genetics, but they're super powerful. And the cats, uh, there was a very specific reason why in ancient Egypt they were so sacred. Yeah, you now nowadays go to Egypt and the cats know it, like even the way they walk, when they go in front of you.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. Do you think they came from another planet? Do you think do you think everything here came from a different planet? But it seems like cats came from somewhere very mysterious. Like cats are very mysterious.
Yes, I definitely do believe that the founders planted seeds of most of the races here, the species that we get to see. And they were just testing, with everything. They were testing with everything. Actually, when they arrived here, the level of toxicity in the oxygen was very high. So, like, only aquatic beings were actually, like for a while, generated through the process of evolution. After the endosymbiosis and the symbiosis in between the organelle that we know nowadays, like the mitochondria and the cell, which was an anaerobic microorganism and aerobic microorganism and anaerobic microorganism, that they generated a fusion and endosymbiosis. And then that's also one of the proofs that we have galactic DNA, the mitochondria. The mitochondria in our body has a different genetic code from our cellular nucleus, and it's quite related to the galactic origin. So yeah, the founders planted a lot of species, and then after that process of endosymbiosis, then other species could actually be breathing the oxygen because it was highly toxic.
That's
Some ETs actually cannot breathe right now. A lot of the masks that the Mayans are shown in the depictions were breathers that they used. For instance, the Mayans did not have the nose like this, like an eagle. They did have like a subtle angle, but not as they are shown in the depictions. It was a device that they used to breathe, you know? So, and I have pictures of how in the statues, this part is shown as something aside of the nose, several
wow.
ones.
I have
Yes.
so many. We're out of time, but I got to ask you this real quick. Like, what do you think happened to the Mayans, and like, why do you think they turned to blood sacrifice? If you could answer, I don't know if you'll be able to. I mean, my next podcast is in 7 minutes, but so we have 7 minutes. But I
Just
figured I would ask you. Plus, you're down in Mexico, so you're probably studying the pyramids a lot, and I got to make it down there. I want to go to Chichen Itza. I want to see Chichen Itza during the equinox
Mm,
when the serpent comes down the pyramid. But
yes.
anyway, but what do you think about the Mayans? Because it seems like they just disappeared, and then there was a. It seemed like they were so advanced, but then some people say they turned to blood sacrifice. So, do you have any thoughts about the Mayans?
Well, you can come with us to Mexico. We are organizing a trip to Mexico. So,
That's right. Sean said that. Yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
yeah, we're preparing very powerful things and visits to places where ETs come, and actually with all these artifacts. And yeah, but we yeah, it's we will be doing a show about all of this because it will be, we're preparing something very special. And so about the Mayans, I they have told me, because I get to talk to them a lot, and what they have told me is that they are here, but yet they are in another dimension. you know they are in existing in another dimension, which is the fifth density. So um, and some of them are actually underground, but not like actually under the water, like deep layer, and between the ground, underground, and in the water. It's like they went back to their roots, because actually the founders of most of the Mayan came from the water. So they just went, like, they reached the level of consciousness and they went to the water, back to the water. And yes, they cannot be seen. If you don't have a five-dimensional form of perception, you cannot tune into them. But some of them are, they can actually, not as ghosts, but they are interacting in very specific virgin places of the places that they were at. Now, the Mayans were not only in the peninsula de Yucatan, they were also in the central part of Mexico, which makes it very interesting, where the pyramids of the sun, like the ones known for the Aztecs, they found groups of Mayans in that area. So that makes you wonder the accuracy, whether if only the Aztecs built those pyramids, or were they created actually other kind of let's say agreements and alliances, or they passed on one to another the knowledge, as they did to the Toltecs. But about the blood sacrifices, everything, the old like blood offering started with the menstrual blood. That's what a blood offering was in the beginning. That's why they say they sacrificed virgins. It was not the virgin, it was the blood of the menstrual blood of a virgin. But you know how it is loved to actually, like put a very terrorist side to everything, because
Ah,
also the program of the Matrix functions that way, to create fear, to create separation. I'm not saying that there were not blood sacrifices, because I've gone to many places that I read blood. Not all blood is like also blood from battles, because they would battle a lot, but in between the groups, the tribes. But um, I've seen artifacts where they show an ET in the back part of a priest, and the priest has what can be seen as a knife, and what can be seen or can be seen as a scepter, and then the body of a man resting. They were using electricity, they were using electrocurrent. Most of the tribes there used the heart, as they knew the importance to it. Then a lot of distortion did happen, and a lot of mist tried to filter, um, and some of them fell for that. It's not most of it, I can tell you. Like, it's sad how most archaeologists just say, just see a drop of blood in a step, and they say, oh, sacrifice. Oh, this pyramid was used for sacrifice. No, it can be another reason, another possible reason. We have found lots of like dead bodies and corpses of kids. Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't, but like the amount of corpses that they have found is not can even be considered into like uh, as something really like a big amount or a considerable amount of corpses. Um, and yes, there were also, of course, influences of other beings. But what I can tell you is that When when there is very important information, there are a lot of layers to access to the core of it, because precisely the other factions have entangled so many fuzziness and distortion to it, so that we cannot, or we could not access to it, so that we could run through the program of what most people say to not touch it. For instance, the Aztecs they are barely known for, because everybody, what they mostly relate them to sacrifice, to blood sacrifice, and they say no, they were bloodthirsty. No, like, there is also another aspect to discover about them and the technology that they were using. They were very different from the Mayans, yes, and some of them fall to generate sacrifices for other beings, but and I usually don't use but. In this case, I will. I always like to remember and invite people that listen to me to remember that we are creating our reality based on our perception. And it's not denying the truth of what we see, yet it is molding the truth to a way that it will actually enlighten us. In other words, expand through the information and not be imprisoned through the information. If we give more power to the stories of fear and rejection and separation, then we are not accessing to the core. And this matrix was made precisely for that, to go beyond the fleece mist that most people would say, I won't go there, like, no, and just move forward. Because those ones who actually have the heart, the love to go beyond that, what seems very easily to be judged, can actually find that all of that was created as a test to expand our heart. And that's the heart sacrifice. That's the true origin of the heart sacrifice, not putting your heart out. It's expanding your heart so much that it's the most sacred thing, that you're not attached to anything, to a body. So you cannot be killed. Your heart cannot be removed. It's not attached to anything. So everything just is. And then you can actually see beyond the matrix and be sustained in a reality beyond the matrix. Right now, we are doing a collective move forward. So we can come and go. In the end, we are required to move forward as unity, those ones who choose so, to help each other to actually expand the heart so much that it's not attached to anything else. So
That's amazing.
nobody can remove it from us.
Yeah. But this was, I'd love to have you back on, maybe honestly next month again, because I feel like I have so much more to ask you about. I want to ask you about the rainbow body. I want to ask you about Kundalini. So, and out of body experiences and stuff like that. So, and if you want to do it with Sean, we can have Sean and you together, or however you guys want to do it, or I can have you guys both on individually again. But I'd like to have both of you on again in November. And yeah, I can reach out to you tonight after I'm done with my next show. But yeah, do you want to? Anything you want to promote, and thank you so much for doing this. This was amazing.
Thank you for having me. And yes, well, right now, by the end of the year, I'm going to publish my first book in English, and it is about unified consciousness. Precisely, it's a manual, 10 sounds, which is 10 chapters. It's a small guide, and it's very powerful. It works through sound. So you have to read it out loud. and I will be. So if you want to know more, then you can see my media when I publish it. And also, I'm giving online courses about the plasma body activation in English and in Spanish, about to translate your source code, which is your geometrical body, which is a way to detach from the anchors of this matrix. And actually, when you have your plasma body activated and you activate your geometrical body, you're capable to influence your reality from the holofractographic field. In other words, you construct your reality from the dimension where it was created. And that's very powerful, very powerful. That this is high tech, your life shifts like that, like this. And we have upcoming tours. I also give sessions, one-on-one sessions, and frequencies. So if you want to check out my YouTube channel, I was initiated in Egypt with my voice. The frequency is very powerful. I mean, overall, your voice, if you tune into the sound of your soul, you can heal like that. You can harmonize your body like this.
I remember that. I remember when we were at the conference, you sang. I remember that. And I actually got that on camera. Actually, I
Yes.
think it's on my live videos that people go back and they watch. It was the closing night of the conference. I think that's what night it was.
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yes.
if you guys want to hear Yssah sing too, yeah, that's. But you do this on your channel too. Do you sing as well on your channel?
I have videos with the frequencies and images. I will also be putting now videos with codes, like I did now for the hurricane. I put a code and it's moving while one of my frequencies is playing. So that's very powerful. It's for emotional hurricanes. So yeah, that's one example. I will be putting it in YouTube. And yeah, it's like mostly the recordings, you can only hear my voice and some codes now, like watching at the codes while listening to my voice.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was amazing. And I
Thank
can't wait to
you.
talk to you again. And guys, I'll be live again in a couple minutes. I have Dr. Renee Nagel coming on next. She's going to talk about abduction, like anomalous trauma associated with PTSD. She's a doctor. And yeah, I just got to go to the bathroom real quick and get something to drink.
Sure.
And then I'll be right back on. So just look for the link. And thanks, Yssah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that you're doing. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.